Well, good afternoon, good morning. It depends where you are. It is a pleasure to be here. Invited by G&M News in the 9th webinar to analyze the gambling industry. And for that purpose, we have with us three important people that know very much about this industry. We have on one side Alessandro Fried, who is the CEO for BtoBet. We have Christian Maglia, the CCO for Magellan Robotech, and then the youngest is Robert Toth, who is the corporate business development for Globet. I am Eduardo Morales, the oldest one. I am a senior and consultant and advisor for Ficom Leisure and iGamingCo. The idea of this seminar is try to provide you some ideas, opinions, and concepts that will help you to understand better. First of all, the situation that has been created in the industry because of the COVID-19, which has struck the land-based industry very badly, but as well, it has been very bad for the online gaming and betting, especially because all betting for real-time events has been off for the last 3 months. It's only just restarting. So we are going to try and give you on the first topic our views about how the industry is going to evolve and what are the different opportunities that are there. And we have to provide you with an outlook of how we see the industry should answer the different challenges that have been brought in by the COVID-19. Our guests are going to be discussing every topic, and after we finish the webinar, our participation, we are going to be here to answer any questions from the audience. So I want to be brief in the introduction, and I would like to have introduce the first topic, which is what is the best time for providers to show the wide array of possibilities and tools to keep and retain customers post COVID-19. And for this, I'm going to give the floor to Alessandro Fried for him to let us know what does he think and how we should approach this. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Good afternoon to everybody. So yes, about COVID-19 and the post-COVID-19. Let's say that for a lot of countries and a lot of regions, it's still not post-COVID-19. We are still in the middle of pandemic, and if we talk about Latin America, it's still obviously in many countries a complex situation, and the situation is not solved. Let's say that we can call this period post-peak of COVID-19 and resuming of the main leagues, because one of the main, as everybody knows, one of the main issues related to this period was that one of the issues obviously was that all the main league just shut down and there was no more sport on which players and customers can bet on. Now the situation luckily is coming back from this point of view. We have already some leagues that started, and during this month many other leagues will resume. So this will give in some area, like in Europe, the possibility to go back, if it's not like a pre-COVID-19, in any case, to have a good opportunity to come back in the same situation. But Latin America will not be obviously the case. We have countries where the lockdown is still there. We have countries where the situation, still if there is not a lockdown, is very complex. We have Brazil, we have Colombia, where there is still a full lockdown for the retail operation. There is Mexico. Many retail operators, casino in Mexico, are planning to shut down, and they don't know when they will open again. They don't know if it will be in August, in September, in October. So the period of lockdown can be very long. So in that situation, it's obvious that for company that operate previously online, it will become a great opportunity. So the post-peak COVID will become a very great opportunity for all these companies. For the retail company, it won't be still the moment. And I don't believe that to quickly go online will be the solution, because obviously to move online and to be able to have a proper operation that include the technologies, knowledge, organization, and everything takes time. So it's not a solution that someone can just get in 1 month. But I believe that this situation can be, this COVID situation have been and could be useful to understand that nothing is granted, and that a proper vision, a proper risk management from the ability to manage multiple channels become a great opportunity for any companies. And we saw for the online companies, it's 2 months, 2.5, 3 months on which the volumes went significantly down. For the retail, the period will be much more longer.
Okay.
So this is
very good. Thank you very much, Alessandro. I would like to hear Christian's vision on this situation, and how does he see the future that is tomorrow. I think you have to open the mic.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eduardo. I fully agree with Alessandro. I really hope that today we can, or we are here to talk of post-COVID-19. I'm really, really not sure, and probably saying that it's probably post-peak of the outbreak is even not correct, because as you know, especially in Europe, we are waiting for a second wave of the COVID outbreak, probably for the autumn months like October, November. And this is probably a very big issue that all the companies need to take in consideration, because all the effort that they are doing to open the shops today, the shops maybe will work for a couple of months, and then again their operations will be interrupted during the winter or autumn, or at the beginning of 2021. So it's a very, very tough situation. Honestly, I work for a company that is today operating in 6 different countries in Europe. All those countries, Italy, Belgium, Denmark, UK, Cyprus, are basically, shutdown situation, or the shops were closed, not working. And even in Italy, that was the first country after China to be affected by the pandemic. Even Italy has still all the shops, all the bingo halls, all the arcades that are still closed. Everything is still completely unclear. There are some protocols that are somehow or partially agreed with the government, with the organizations about the reopening, but still there is no official document signed. Now, could be tomorrow, could be the 15th of June, the day of the reopening. The football is starting basically the 12th with the Coppa Italia. And this is probably more, something that the money, the business, imposed, because Italians respected very much, but not just Italians. Now I'm talking about Italy because it's where I'm living now. I spent the last 3 months with my family in Italy after traveling for the last 20 years all around the world. So the Italian respected the measures taken by the government very strictly, and probably Italy is the first country to really come out of the pandemic. Now, what will happen to the betting companies? What will happen to the gaming industry? It's really something not easy to predict. And to be honest, I don't think that with all our experience, with everything that we know from the past, we can really give a solution or a suggestion to the issue. We can give advices on some of the aspects that are crucial. It needs to be a new approach. That's what I think, a new approach to the operation. Some companies will need to probably to change their approach. They will need to innovate. and at least to move more and more toward the online, but who is not ready for the online, cannot change the way they do business in one night, in 1 month, maybe even in 1 year. Maybe even 1 year is not enough to move from fully retail-oriented to an online approach. So, my vision, especially for Latin America, is that the big names, the most international online operators, will be in a better position compared to the local small operators. If I can make a name, just not to have anybody complaining about that, the companies like Bet365, for example, they're already fully focused on online. And for sure, they will be in a better position compared to companies mostly, or in some cases, only working with shops, with agents, the classic local retail environment. Doing online is really something you cannot organize in a few days, probably in the same way as is true the opposite. Online companies cannot easily organize a retail organization. Basically, you cannot prepare a good platform to work with shops in the same way as you cannot prepare in a few days a platform to work online. So if you look at countries like Colombia or Mexico, we were talking before starting this webinar with Alessandro about Colombia and with Eduardo about Mexico. And just if we talk about South America, you will find a few operators that are part of an international organization, international companies with operations in several countries, from Switzerland to Sweden to UK to Italy, and then they move to Mexico or Colombia or other countries. And if they are not too much affected at the moment, that's what I think, if they are at the moment not too much affected by the COVID in Colombia or in Mexico, they are most probably very much affected by what was happening in other countries, in their origin countries. Like, imagine an Italian company that was spending the last 3 months with shops closed, so the revenues were affected, probably more than 80% of their revenues were burned. They will not be anymore able to invest abroad. Who was planning to invest in Latin America maybe will reconsider that, especially if it's retail oriented. But if it's online, it's different. Online operation with proper platform, with proper organization can be set up also in such a complicated situation. So we need to wait the next months to understand what will happen. And companies like Alessandro company, that is offering online platform, are the companies that will shape the future, will shape the next months. Companies that can really, push one product or another. And okay, I will suggest later in the next steps, we will discuss about what we can really suggest products-wise.
Okay, let's try to not jump into another topic, otherwise. Robert, let us know your fresh views.
Hi, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Do you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this crisis taught all of us that not being prepared for something like this is detrimental for finances and for the profits, especially operators who didn't have online operations. They were completely caught off guard. And for these operators, it will be very, very difficult to get back to business and to make profits, because as Alessandro pointed out, it's not so easy to just go online. It takes a lot of months of work and preparation. Thankfully, those who had online operations discovered that they can still make a lot of profits. Our company offers virtual sports, and we noticed that online we had a huge growth in revenues compared to the same period of last year. We're talking roughly 250% up to 300%, which is a massive number. So revenue-wise, it was very good for us. On the other hand, all the land-based operations, they were completely shut down. Italy, one of our biggest markets, all betting shops closed. So we really felt this. Just to cut it short, in the post-COVID-19 era, I think players also transformed a lot, because most players who preferred sportsbook, for example, and they never tried out virtual sports, now they were forced to try out new things, esports, maybe virtual sports, and these players will continue playing these games. So we notice also a transformation in the end player, in the punter.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. Well, it looks like things are going to be different. It looks like COVID-19 has been a game changer in a way, and it's going to be, and it is a game changer. Probably we have to think that it's going to be for the best in the new environment that we are going to have ahead of us, which is not going to be the same. Both Alessandro and Christian talked about retail. Well, retail is going to go through a calvary, I will say, for the next couple of years. It's not going to be short, it's going to be long. It's a long, winding road, like a Beatles song says. And online, perhaps, if you want to call the lucky one, since it is not, you don't need to have a public access, and you are not limited by sanitary measures, and you are not, and you don't have to wear a mask. Online has that opportunity, and that opportunity is already there for the land-based operators who are able and can do it and will do it properly. Don't think that this is just open a website and that's it. That is why in the second topic, I would like to set up some examples of, let's say, successful cases, stories that maybe can give some guidelines to some of the operators who are thinking about entering the online and adding it to the offer, which is a great idea, but it must be done properly. I'm going to start with Christian this time to see how do you, if you can express some success story that can provide ideas and guidance to the audience. The mic.
Of course, thank you again. Of course, I could talk about virtual sports, about esports, but I will leave this to Robert, because we, as a companies, I mean, we've got similar offer. But I want to talk about a story from the past. I mean, a couple of years ago, after my experience at Sportradar and after Bet Games, both with very good presence in the Latin American market, I worked for and with a couple of friends to a startup called WeAreCasino. At the time, one of our most important strength point was the fact that we started working or offering video bingo games. So it was a European-based company that for the first time decided to enter the Latin American market, and instead of preparing or working at classic sports betting products, slot games products, virtual sports, we decided a completely different approach, and we started from video bingo. So we basically took over a small local Latin American company based in Uruguay. We incorporated the games offer into the API and the platform that we built at the time. And we did this because basically we realized that we needed a different approach. Again, what I was saying before, we could bring the products, the same products that the other were offering in other continents, etc. But we wanted to find what could be different and successful in LATAM. And we looked at Brazil as the most interesting market to look at. And we wanted a product that could be offered in Brazil. So we found video bingo, and it was a very successful story because all the big companies from Europe that were operating at the time in Latin America, especially in Brazil, came to our small company asking for those video bingo. So, what I want to say here is that you need to always to look at the country, at the territory, at the markets, to look at the culture, local culture, not just doing a mere, an exercise of localization, translation of your content and offering the same that you offer in other countries. You need to find something that the people you are targeting really wants to use. This is just my successful story. Also, if it was very, very small, but we were, so happy to have all the big names even companies that were in the stock exchange in the UK were coming to such a small startup because they needed those video bingo games.
Very interesting, Christian. Robert, you are now next. Tell us something that you have experienced probably the last 3 months, but you can go beyond, that you think has been an outstanding experience that become also like a game changer in a small way.
Well, what I can say for sure is that a lot of companies that we worked with until now, who maybe didn't have a top priority to integrate our products, all of a sudden it was on the first place on their list. So everybody contacted us in panic, and they wanted to get integrated as soon as possible. One of these companies is Inchalot, Peru. They have 5,000 points of sale in Peru. Quite a big company. Now they focus all their operations on online. They already had a virtual sports provider before, but after they integrated us, the numbers went up significantly. And from what we understood, this is mostly due to the graphical realism of our product, because players liked it much more because it looked like the real thing, especially players who got converted from sports to classical sportsbook player. They preferred our product much more. So yeah, this example is one success story that I can talk about, but obviously most of our integrations are success stories. Because operators finally noticed the importance of virtual sports, and those who are prepared and have proper online operations, they also noticed the profits that they can get back with their online operations.
Thank you very much. Okay, Alessandro, now you are the big bag of experience.
Yes, I have to say that despite the COVID-19 situation, this last month have been a great success. A lot of operators turn to our company in order to improve the technologies, and retail operators to move to an omni-channel solution in order to offer as well the online. So from this point of view, it has been a great success. But from the operational point of view and from the operator perspective, I think that there is another story that it's interesting, and it's related first to Colombia and in general to Latin America, because we know that Latin America, it's a market mainly driven by retail, and we was expecting that the main leagues will restarting in June, but we knew that the situation in LATAM especially will not recover just because the leagues will recover. So we knew that retail will have been a problem. So most of our customers was already using previously an omnichannel solution, so they was able to operate retail, not anymore, and to continue to operate online. But online they face some issue. One was access to payment, because it's a big problems in any case. Latin American players, at least in many countries, are not used to use online payment method. And the second, in any case, you can try to convert your land-based customers to online, but in any case, to penetrate a new community, it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's require a new investment. So together with one of our partner, and then we made an incredible partnership, but then we expanded for the whole LATAM, and it's a partnership with a company called Rappi. Rappi, it's the largest Latin American online delivery system. This means that through this app, you can try it. Through this app, you can just access on it. The system check your position, and through this app, you are able to online request almost any kind of goods, from goods that you find in the supermarket, electronics, almost everything. You can find it, you can order it, and you will receive directly at home. Inside Rappi, you can top up your wallet with electronic payment, but as well, they are able to collect directly through your home the cash. So in that way, they simplify as well the payment method. They have a large base of active users. They have almost more than 9 million active users in Colombia, 5 million in Mexico, 3 million in Peru, and then in Chile and other countries, they are largely present as well. So what we did was, one of the characteristics of the platform is the flexibility and the capacity to integrate with any solution. So in that case, Rappi made the full integration with our platform. This means that a player inside the Rappi application is able directly to bet or to play casino games or virtuals. So inside the application, you do not need to leave the application. In these days, we will launch the first operator. It's Megapuesta in Colombia. It's the first operator that will, and on which we build a partnership with Rappi, thanks to them. So we launch this operation, and it will be a very, very nice experience. And obviously, I'm very curious about the conversion and the result that we will get through this operation. But I'm really positive. If from one day to another one to access to 9 million of potential customers, it's, I believe it's a significant potential success. So let's see. But this shows how you can, in any case with retail operation, like the one that have in place Megapuesta, you could move, having the right technology and the right vision, you can move quickly online. So I believe that this can be a good example.
Brilliant, Alessandro. But this leads us to again, to technology, to new strategy. Everybody knows online gaming is just a casino in the middle of the desert. But that is finished when the land-based casino is getting involved, because then we will have the casino at the door front, on the high street, or in a destination, whatever. And it's a different business model than a standard online gaming company that bases all their strategy in the media marketing and other type of marketing which are not based on the land-based. Omnichannel and not multi-channel, which is something a little bit quite different, is one of the solutions that is being put in place by major operators already, especially in the UK, and then it has spread into other jurisdictions. And it is something that is a must, I think, in the industry that comes into the online business from the retail position in order to capitalize their retail premises. But it needs to be done properly. It is not as simple. It is not just something that you just have 2 channels and that's it. I watched that. Robert, tell us what is your vision of the omnichannel now that you already had this opportunity? You come from a product which was paradigmatic in retail. Markets like Italy, Africa, and now others were leading hubs for the virtual bets. And all of a sudden, the COVID situation has moved the online. That were very passive about virtual sports, even esports, but virtual sport. They were passive about it. Of course, those that had it did not really made it visible to the customer. They were emphasizing their efforts and their strategy in the live real betting, and of course in the casino games, etc. All of a sudden, this has been coming in like a substitution. But those companies that were retail now or were online now, they feel that virtuals is an asset that they have been taking advantage of in the midst of the COVID. So what is your vision or your idea about the omnichannelity?
Yes, omnichannel is definitely the way forward. It's actually the only way if an operator wants to get big. Unfortunately, smaller operators have some sort of difficulty to be truly omnichannel. We notice, especially in Africa, where we also have large operations, most of the business was land-based, and operators didn't quite have any presence online. So now they all rush towards online, and they try to make things better, but it's not so easy, as Alessandro pointed out a bit earlier. So a true omnichannel experience means that mostly the big operators are able to achieve this.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Christian.
Yeah, actually, omnichannel is, or better, it was a buzzword, you know, in the gaming industry for some time now. The classical way we think of omnichannel can work everywhere in the same way. In some countries, for example, the local regulators are making it very, very complicated. You can't use, for example, the same wallet for when the player can't use the same wallet online or on retail. An example is the Italian market in this case. So basically the operators can't offer the same experience to players moving from shops to online. So for sure, and you know, also if not everywhere in the same way and with the same account and wallet, we can do a lot to bring online and retail closer and closer. In my opinion, one example is to share, of course, the content between several channels. Operator will need to offer online, and when I say online, I mean, of course, on desktop and on mobile, because someone is just offering a website and thinks, you know, to be fully online, fully multi-channel or omni-channel. The same games basically that the players or that the operator offer to play in the shops and vice versa. Virtual sport is an easy example, but when you look at other games like video lotteries or slot games that you offer in the shops, of course, you need to do your best as an operator to offer continuity to your clients, to offer the same games in the shops and online. And in my opinion, for true omni-channel operators, the pandemic was probably even an opportunity today. You know, even when the regulation allows operator to offer products in several channels, the same products, I mean, in several channels, operator will need to improve the product offering using a seamless wallet that can work the same way on all the channels, so offering the same user experience or gaming experience. So bringing tablets and touch PCs in the shops, but why not bringing the betting, streaming or virtual sports or real sports in the TVs that the players can watch in, you know, in his house, in his apartment. And another important point most of the companies are probably still not considering is that to talk of omni-channels, the operators sometimes miss to understand that they are not present or they are missing some of the channels that today the technology is offering. Do you think that saying online and retail when you talk of omni-channel is enough? Probably it's really far to be enough. So we should think to telephone betting, the possibility to accept betting from the phone, the old, very old method. You know, it's the first probably online way to accept betting. Or as I mentioned before, we should think to second screen. So the use of the tablets or the mobile phones in the same way the player is watching on TV a sport event. Or today, smartwatches that are everywhere, very easy to be, you know, set up and integrated into a betting experience. And even more interesting, in my opinion, is to use those smart devices like Google Home, like Alexa, you know, those assistants that today are, you know, very cheap, 35 euros. And I imagine like tomorrow you can ask, hey, Alicia or Alexa or whatever, can you place a 5 euros bet on Inter Milan winning tonight against Manchester or against Liverpool? This, I mean, when a company will cover all those channels, smart TVs, smart devices, digital assistants, internet on desktop, on mobile, and shops, but also in the shops, bringing the internet games, bringing the tablets, bringing the touch PCs, then it will be probably omni-channel. So that's really my opinion about omni-channel. I think there is a lot to do also for the big companies today.
Thank you very much, Christian. Very brilliant. Alessandro, I think you have the opportunity to boost the revenues of the online gaming through the omni-channel strategy that you know very well.
Yes, and the problem is that till today, omni-channel is still just a nice word, because most of the company on the market heard the word omni-channel, but they still don't understand the concept of omni-channel. Omni-channel is not the ability to deliver the service that a company has to different channels. And it's what you said at the beginning, it's the multi-channel this. Omni-channel means focusing on the players no matter the channel. And focusing on the players need to, when we talk about focusing on the players, we talk about data. The ability to collect and to manage players' information, players' behaviors, players' interests through all the possible channels, to use this data in order to deliver a better services, to better engagement, a better retention through all the possible channels. So many times we think that when we talk about omni-channels means that I have the website, I have the mobile, I have the smartwatch, I have the retail, and so on. This is not omni-channel. Omni-channel is that I'm able to deliver the right service to the players in the right moment through the right channel because I know him. Means that when you get in a shop and you place a bet, I start to understand what are the interests of these customers. And I'm able to interact with him in the moment where he will use another channel. So shifting from online or retail to omnichannel means to change completely the approach of a company towards the way they manage their own business. And focusing on the players and the data means, first of all, to have the technologies. There is no way, because in that case, we are talking about ability to collect information and manage big data, because we're talking of massive quantity of data that I need to be able to manage in order to understand them and take decision. And this is a change. For a company that does retail, it's a big change because they don't know anything about their customers. A land-based casino, very poorly. A bet shop, an operation that has bet shop or agent, very poorly. They place anonymous bets, they play anonymously, they don't know anything about their customers. So to switch and to shift towards this kind of approach, in an approach on which you start to know your customers, you start to collect information, then obviously it's natural to use other channels. It's natural directly to use different way to communicate with the customers. So this is a process that for many companies needs, before the technology, needs the vision. A company needs to change its own vision. And then at that point, the company is able to identify, to understand the technology that they need, and then to use it and to change the business approach. And it's as well quite obvious that being able to manage and to have an omni-channel in that way solution, it's from the risk perspective, it's a totally different situation. I have issue with my retail, I have another channel on which I can push because I know my customers. There is no sportbook, I have over vertical that I know and that I can push on my customers because I know their preference, their interest, and I can shift them through a different content or through a different channel. But this is still a long process. I'm trying to transfer this knowledge on the market more and more, but it's a very long knowledge transfer process before reaching this point.
Sorry, Eduardo, just something, if it's possible. Of course, Alessandro approach is for an operator and for a platform. And I mean, this is a point of view that is, I fully agree with him. But to be able to do this, you need products that are working on all the channels. Most of the providers of the games, if you look at the VLTs, are only retail, or most of them, and some slots, some online slots are only online and not going on retail, and some virtuals are only retail and on online. So Of course, you need the platform, you need AI, you need big data, you need everything. You need to know your client, but before you need the products to offer to your client. When you know what they want, what they do, what they like to play, etc. If you don't have the product to offer everywhere, you know, and to follow the player with one wallet, that was basically the basis, in my opinion, one wallet to be used everywhere. Just wanted to add this. Otherwise, I fully agree with Alessandro.
Many ways. Well, it is true. I mean, both of you both of you three have really tickled the right issues. One wallet is more or less the point of the triangle that where everything meets, and then comes the channels and product gathered. We are very far away yet from a multi-product equal in each channel, because unfortunately the manufacturers of the land base are not involved yet in the online in order to bring up. There is a few already doing it, but not the main ones, and not locally speaking. There is quite a long way to go yet. As Alessandro said, it is a fact that if you don't have big data today, practically you cannot do efficiently what you should do to really please your customers. You have to know the itinerary of your customer in order to come back with the answers, and if possible to anticipate their desire, what they like, what they want, to please them. I mean, online omni-channel, as Alessandro said, it is just a word that very few people can interpret properly, and there are many edges still yet there to be not to be discovered, but to be implemented. Okay, so we are still in the beginning of the rank. And then one important call is to the regulators. Many regulators don't understand how technology is going ahead of the laws. That is why sometimes there is markets where retail has one regulation, online has another regulation, and then it is difficult to establish a one wallet when you have two different sources, two different. There is a lot of anonymous people playing on the land base yet. The land base operators refuse to identify customers. This is classic. Okay, so the big enemy of that is the retail operator, because they want anonymous. This is ending little by little. The different regulations are gaining pace in trying to identify players, because they also want to establish responsible gaming, and it is a fact that this way they can also establish a responsible gaming. That's why online gaming has a big advantage on the responsible gaming issues. And going back to Latin America, I think it would be nice to know, as Alessandro said before, again, each market has a different profile of customer, product, likes and dislikes, and you have to adapt the offer to the locals, because even though online gaming is a global concept, universal concept, you are going to sell the guy in Colombia, the guy in Mexico, the guy in Brazil, the guy in Spain, in Italy, in different markets. And to make it very simple, you know, if you want to sell online gaming in the US, if you don't have NFL, if you don't have NHL, if you don't have hockey, soccer is still not known. Okay, and if you go to Argentina, they want to bet on River Plate, they want to bet on Boca, they want to bet on Independiente, and so forth. I can make many more examples. So maybe Alessandro can illustrate us about how to meet the demand in the different markets, and let's concentrate in Latin America as part of the issue that I think it will be interesting to discuss here.
There is several aspects and as well a different period. If I talk about the short-term period, it was a panic. A lot of operator was focused previously on sportbook, obviously, and in that situation, they try to contain their damage, and they try to push as many possible different vertical and different content. So luckily in that direction, we invested in the past in having integrated a huge quantity of vertical. And one of the reasons, during COVID, it was very good, but I have to say that one of the reasons is that we believe that each country have different requests in terms of type of vertical and type of game as well. If I'm not wrong, we have integrated in our platform more than 100 providers of different type of content, from lotteries to virtual, to slot, to casino, live, and so on. And the reason is not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality of content. If you go, so in that days, obviously virtuals, and I believe that my two colleagues here will talk about it very well after me, was one of the #1 requests, because it was the closest type of content compared to the sport. So it was a perfect match and a perfect additional content. When we talk about the situation that was previous COVID, we always push in any case the omnichannel, and content that was working through the different channel, or solution to make this content working through the different channel, was another aspect quite important. And when I talk about Latin America, I talk about a country that it's still driven by retail. I think that online it's probably 20% in best cases. For many operators, it still represents the small part of their operation. So when an operators look about their needs, it's look first of all about the retail and how we can increase its own offer through the retail. Then it's look about the online. When it comes to the online, the challenge are many. We are talking first of all about payments, because it's one of the main challenge. Because at the end, in Latin America, a big part of the consumers don't use normally the payments. And I believe that this situation, this moment, the COVID-19 situation probably helped in that direction, because a lot of consumers turn to online services, and so turn to online payments. If I see, for example, Colombia, one of our customers use, for example, owns, for example, what they call in Latin America aggregators. So they own an aggregator. They have around 27,000 point of sales, on which customers can go there to top up their mobile, TV, buy Netflix, subscription, utilities, and so on, by cash. Now, all these point of sales are closed. There is no way that they can go with the cash so easily. Some are open, but it's the majority of these point of sale are closed. And customers are turning online. So this is as well an interesting aspect in understanding how the behavior of the customers will change. Another important aspect in general is as well the flexibility of the UX. Because when you move country by country, as well, you have to face some challenge. For example, when we moved in Africa some years ago, you think that with the same type of user experience, you can approach the African market. It's a failure, because obviously you have to challenge yourself through other aspects. The device normally used by the customers are low devices, so devices that cost less than $100, $150. This means that it's low devices, and you need a front end that is able to perform properly in that direction. Or the question of bandwidth. You don't have 4G everywhere when we talk about emerging market. So you need to be able to deliver services that works properly in an environment where connectivity is not at its best. So what the operator wants? It's a complex question, because many times they don't know exactly what they want. So from my point of view, a big work that we have to do is to anticipate what they want, understanding very well the market on which they operate, and be able to offer solution in order they can operate properly in that market. So this is the biggest challenge, the ability to understand in many times not only from one, but from multiple operators, not what they think they need, but how the market operates, what are the limitations of this market, what are the challenges to deliver a proper service, and to be able to provide them what they should need. This is the way we approach the requirement in LATAM as well.
Very well. Robert, let us know what you experience in the demand from Latin America, besides evidently the payment processing is a big issue in Latin America. But there are others regarding products. Illustrate us.
Yeah, coming back to your question, I believe that if an operator truly understands what the end player wants, then the operator also gets what he wants. And this is a key issue. Alessandro mentioned UX and UI. It's very important that the way we communicate with the end players is done in a way that they have a pleasant experience and they come back and continue playing whatever game it is. So UI UX is definitely one of the key things here. Players need content. This is the also a very important part of this, since sport content was missing in the past 3 months. They were searching for other types of content, and virtual content is one of these savers in the current situation. We noticed that a lot of players converted from classical sportsbook players, and now they're playing only virtual sports, and they enjoy it. And they also realize that it offers them an instant gratification. They don't need to wait days or weeks maybe until their favorite team plays. They can just play virtuals and yeah, get their kick on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. Christian, now you have to really be very, very wise here.
First of all, you asked.
Tell us the secrets.
We are talking
that
about.
We have to know about pleasing the Latin American.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about two aspects. One is innovation, and second is what they are asking for, what they are demanding. So I would like to say that, in my opinion, innovation can be something you decide to offer. You know, innovation is in the company culture. Innovation is something you need to install in, as I said, in the culture of the company, in the way you create the products, in the way you work every day, in the way you are researching for new products or new UI, new UXs, etc. So it means that you will look at new technologies, new channels, new games, also and always being open to look at what each market is searching for. And you need to do your best to offer what the market is searching for. And here we are at the second part of the question. What I was saying before about the bingo games, about the video bingo in Brazil, I always had this approach. You need to look at the local culture where you want to offer your products. When you decide to enter a new market, I'm now talking with a European point of view, but of course could be the same for a Peruvian company that want to offer this product in Colombia, or for a Mexican that want to offer in Brazil. You need to do your own works. Basically, you start trying to localize your product, your offer, and there it comes, the translation. Sometimes, especially Europeans, are making very, errors like translating in Portuguese for Brazil using Portuguese translators from Portugal. And a lot of words are not the same. The same if you use Spanish translator for the other countries, especially in sports betting, is not always working. So you need to enter the local culture. And when we talk of products, again, like I said before, for for the video bingos, you know, is the same for everything. In Mexico, for example, if you offer sports betting, you need to offer it in a similar way like if you are offering it in the States. In Peru or in Argentina is more similar to the way you offer it in Europe. In Africa is different. In Asia is different. Alessandro, how many times you were wrong when you launched your products in a new market? I mean, you know, with year after year, we probably learned in the last 10, 20 years for me or for Alessandro, we sometimes learned by experience. And maybe today is not like 10 years ago, like 15 years ago. Today, in my opinion, you really need to do your homework because there is huge competition. I remember a few years ago, friends entering the African market like pioneers, and today they are making billions of turnover in Nigeria, you know, but they were really trying, and they tried with sports betting, was not working. They tried with slot games, was not working. Then they launched a virtual sport that is not my actual virtual sport, is not Robert virtual sport, and is not Sportradar virtual sport. And it was, you know, it was a bingo. They hit the jackpot. So every market is different. You probably, if you don't want to try and find what is the best, you probably need to study before. So in my opinion, every country has a culture, and to be successful, you need to study the countries. If we want to talk about what the audience in Latin America wants, we should talk market by market, country by country. I can tell you Brazil, that is the country where everyone wants to enter. I mentioned before the video bingo games that are preferred to slot games, but I have to mention, of course, the lotteries and the number games that are probably crucial to enter the markets. And I can mention another product that most of my colleagues from B2C operators are not considering, horse racing. In Brazil and in Latin America, especially in the Caribbean, for example, horse racing is crucial. It's very, very, very important, even more important than a lot of the European countries where those horse races are coming from. So, yeah, I think of course, football and sports betting is always the center of the offer, but then you need to enter every single country and understand. And the key, after talking of UX, UI, products, games, etc., the key, again, sorry to repeat this, is like in the omni-channel, in my opinion, is the wallet. The best way to have players that are playing on your site or in your shop is having payment solutions that are working in the country. I remember a friend from a very big UK betting company, UK Swedish betting company operating in Brazil. They were taking the money from the players and then they couldn't bring the money out. So, you know, you have every time you need to study and every time you need to find solution. It's not easy, but you know, you have to start from what they want, from what works in every single market.
Thank you very much, Christian. Robert, come on, tell us, read the ball, the crystal ball.
I wish I would have a crystal ball. Things would be much easier then. I definitely agree with Christian. One of the most important aspects, especially when it comes to providers, looking at our case, is to understand what exactly a market wants, because this can be fragmented very vastly. I give you an example. When we talk about African countries, just if we look at Nigeria has roughly 190 million inhabitants, 190 million people. So you can imagine you can't deliver a product that is universal across an entire country. You need to go more deeper. There are different tribes, there are different areas. Even within a city, you can fragment things to a very vast level. And the more you understand what your players want, the better product you can offer, and the bigger the profits for the operator that works together with you as a provider. So it's definitely one of the key things to understand where you operate. where you use that product.
We're going to the last topic in the agenda, but we'll get into more.
May I interrupt you?
Go ahead, Christian. Go ahead.
Just a flash. We are talking a lot about Latin America. We're talking about Africa, and we all know Europe. But for example, one of the markets everybody is today also thinking about entering somehow is India. And in India, you know what are the games or the products that they want. You know, there are two specific games that if you don't have, there is no way to have, you know, customers in that incredible market that is still not regulated. I mean, it's also complicated under the legal point of view, but you need Andar Bahar and you need Team Patti. Now, you understand that if you are an operator that has a platform with games integrated in a normal way, those two games are probably unknown to the majority of us. So you need Team Patti. This is the secret for India, if you want to take note. Team Patti and Andar Bahar, that are two variants of blackjack and poker. And nobody knows that. But you need to study. You need to talk with local, probably having local agents, etc. Sorry to interrupt you again.
It's fine. It gives a good indication for a next webinar on India. But in the meantime, I think that to resume that there is no question that you have to know the local market in order to have the best approach. There are markets which are not very different one another, but there is always a differential aspect that you have to consider. May have to do with the games, with the content, or may have to do with the payment processors they like to use because of the difficulties, or because simply they don't have a credit card, and therefore they have to look for alternative payment processors, which is a big step, which has been resolved with a lot of the point of sale where you have in Latin America for other purposes, not just for online. So this is a big support for the online gaming as well. But as it pertains to the audience, which is more or less what we were trying to focus, the audience sometimes is towards north, and that is you go to Colombia, Panama, Mexico. They like to play. They like baseball. They like American football, and they like all the games. Then if you go south, then you like soccer and you like horse racing. You know, horse racing is quite popular all over Latin America. At the end of the day, you do have to adapt your offer to the demand, which is very important for the success. And going back to success and to what you have to put together, the last topic has to do with the e-gaming, with the platform, with the software platform. I always believe that there is certain commodities in an operation for online gaming. Okay, one of them for me is the platform, but there is platforms and platforms. So there is different ways of approaching a platform provider. The future of platform providers looks like is more like integrating many areas that are now scattered and provided by different product provider. Probably it would be good to have an idea of where do you think the platforms are driving into in this age that we are living, where technology is just flowing at the speed of the light. And I think maybe we can have Alessandro illustrate that on us, because he's more close to that.
Yes, let's say that we talk about platform, but the offer in the market, it's very limited in terms of platform. We think that it's wide, but it's limited, because in the market, we can more or less define the market in that way. We have tier 1 or large tier 2 operators that started many years ago, and most of them owns their own platform. They developed it 10 years ago. They developed it with a vision about their needs at that time. And step by step, they try to improve this platform, reaching a point where it's becoming difficult, because we're talking about legacy system, to bring this platform in other markets. On the other side, we have what I call the white label providers. So companies that do B2C, they decide to implement the technologies, and they are reselling exactly with small change the same technology to other companies. So this is the second case. And this second case, it's the largest platform that we found on the market, normally operating that way. They provide a sort of white label. They white label their own B2C technologies to other B2B operators. My opinion on this is that this can be a short solution, and many companies decide to take on board this kind of solution in order to quickly be ready in a market where, for example, this company is already present. But in terms of technology, when we talk about a platform, and we talk in that case about a product, we talk about a solution that is able to suit the business requirement of an operator, not to distribute in a market my UX, my business strategy, my vision, but to suit what is your needs. And when we come to this, there is not a lot of platform on the market. So personally, I feel quite lucky to be one of the few that today is able to fulfill this gap. And what is the gap? The gap is that market like Latin America, they will become more and more regulated. Each country in the next years will become regulated. We start with Colombia, but we know that Peru probably will follow, Brazil, and so on. And this means that this market will become perfectly suitable for large operation to enter in. Officially, to be able to promote, but they will need to have a technical partner that have the technology in order they are able to adapt to the specific requirement. When we talk about localization, specific requirement of each countries, requirement to be compliant to the local regulation, local requirement in order to adapt to specific business models, to adapt to the specific UX requirement, to be able to onboard quickly the content. We was talking about video bingo. We talk about different type of content that are necessary to be able to compete in that market. A requirement in order to adapt to the payment models that can be different from country to country in order to sustain the business there. And in some cases, to be able to have an omnichannel solution, not only an online solution in that case. So from our point of view, in terms of platform provider, we believe that the process of regulation will improve the quality of the operators and the bookmaker that will be present in the market. Because when we talk about regulation, we talk about the possibility for an operator to officially promote his activity in that market, to be officially visible. And in that case, we are talking about not only retail, because when we go to regulated and we see what happens in Colombia, it's a perfect example. It was previously only retail. Today, it's moving more and more online. And when you move online, you need technologies that are more advanced than the one that are able to deliver only the retail services. So this is the process of what I'm seeing that will happen in Latin America.
Very good. Robert, give us your vision on the platform innovation and what can the platform enhance in the future to make online gaming better overall for the operator, for the customer, for everybody.
I can only underline the points that Alessandro mentioned. He has a vast experience in this as a platform provider. And I also like BTO platform a lot. It's very versatile and flexible. It's not easy. Unfortunately, there's no magic trick that solves all the problems. Every country is different, every territory is different, and adapting to them is very important. A platform also needs to understand that there is the true omni-channel experience is very hard to achieve. Christian mentioned, for example, an interaction with Alexa, where you can place a bet through Alexa. I don't know how many platform providers support this, but it's the way forward, and this is the future of betting. And platform providers who do not realize this gap and do not make efforts towards using the latest technologies, because this is the key point here, are definitely not platform providers that will survive on the long term.
Thank you, Robert. Christian.
Well, Robert mentioned again Alexa. I can tell you that in 2016, when I was at Sportradar, I was the one who connected Sportradar with Amazon in the States. Because the vice president of Amazon at the time, Mr. Grandinetti, was from the same village, small city, small town of where my wife is coming from. So we met during the summer and we talked, about what you do. And then Sportradar, a few months later, signed a deal providing Amazon all the sports data for the US sports, NBA, NFL, etc. So from that year, the sport results, the live scores, were also enabled and integrated into Alexa. And that's just an example. Of course, it was a very basic integration, but today you need to be global, not just when you think to countries and territories and continents. You need to be omni-channel in every aspect of what you do. So in my opinion, the platforms or the software providers in general need to work always and only with a total quality. They need to think that their product needs to be absolutely the best in the place where it is used. So it's not, for sure it's not easy, because the difficulties of a software house, of a platform provider, are unbelievable. It's something probably offering today a gaming product or a sports betting platform. It's as the same difficulty level of offering a financial product. The same complexity, the same number of calculations, etc. So the key is, in my opinion, innovation, but innovation is something you cannot decide to have. So you have to work to reach the total quality. When you reach the total quality, when you are offering the best product you can offer, if we talk of virtual platforms, slot games or whatever, then you are probably successful. That's the only suggestion I can give, honestly, to do passion and total quality.
Thank you very much. I think we have covered the topics, the 5 topics that we had in the agenda. And now we are going to enter into the questions that we have been receiving by the audience. One is very related to the last topic that we have discussed. I mean, they say there is a lot of operators that mixed up the innovation concept with the idea of offering their platforms all the sports bets and games available. They are asking whether you have, or you think there is a less is more approach, or do you analyze each country and then adapt the offer to each country? Let's start. You are already in the screen. Let's start with you. Then we go to Alessandro.
Guys, I lost the voice for some second. Can you repeat the question?
Well, actually,
yeah.
With you, Christian.
Okay, I repeat the question. That is, they says there is a lot of operators that mixed up the innovation concept with the idea of offering in their platforms, in their offer, in the online gaming offer, all the sports bets available and all the games available. And the gentleman or the person that has made the question is saying that whether there is a less is more approach, or do you analyze each country and then adapt the offer to the country? We'll go to you later, Alessandro.
Okay,
Christian.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure, I can repeat what I said before. On one side, of course, it's very, very important to localize the product and to do your own works and search for the local culture and needs. But on the other side, it's also true that you need at some point to find a way to balance between the need to offer different products in different markets and also the need to have a standardized offer, something that you can offer again and again and again. So, I mean, you cannot go only in one direction. Okay. You need to have the flexibility to decide depending on the situation.
Let us hear Robert, and then we go to Alessandro.
Yeah, it's good to support everything, and it's good to be able to offer everything. But if you give this power to an operator, he will definitely make a big mess. So that's why it's very important for providers to tell the operators what works in that market, to suggest settings. Talking about very basic settings like RTP. Most operators would say, okay, we need RTP for virtuals of 70%, and you cannot set this. You need to explain him the advantages, the disadvantages, what works in that market, how it can be configured. These settings can be done per game, they can be done per bet types. So it's very important for providers to explain to operators that to explain to operators that these things are very important and they need to be considered for each and every market. So it's good to offer all these things, but you need to reduce this offering to a level where the end player has a pleasant experience.
Thank you, Robert. Alessandro.
So let's say that offering everything does not mean anything. We have, if you can imagine that we have in our platform more or less more than 8,000 of games. We can activate this in any website of our operators, and for his customers, it's impossible to decide which games they will like or they will select. They made as well some psychological tests on which they give to a group of persons different option to select. In one case, they could select only 2 items, and they discovered that the consumer was highly demotivated. They give them to select between 40 items, and the consumer was as well highly demotivated because he was not able to choose. Too many of them was available, but he was not able to choose which one them. And then they drag the consumers with a limited offer, enough to give him the idea that he can decide, but not too much to frustrate him in not finding the right contents. So when you manage a website, no matter if we talk about e-commerce, gaming, or any kind of website that offer content or goods, you need, as an operator, to do the work to pre-select or to create a pre-selection for your customers. You need, and for this, I go back to the data, you need to know your customers, you need to be able to cluster your customers, and based on this cluster, you need to create a proper proposal for this type of customers. Limited, not too much to not demotivate him, not too wide to not frustrate him. So this it's a recipe that works in all the different type of contents. As well, when you go in Amazon, you have a vast offer, potentially a vast offer if you go in the search. But at the end, what you are looking inside, it's always a limited selection and many times a good suggestion on which they drive your buying experience.
I think I cannot agree more with all of you, but it is important as we can conclude that you have to have the product which is critical for each market, and then you have to know your customer. Big data, you have to identify the customer likes, and you have to really give each customer, as we have registered customers, we know their roots, we know their whereabouts. We have to get close to what they are looking for, so that when you are showing them to that particular identity the product, you already know exactly where he's been before, what his likes are, and you can get close to what he likes in order to make a selection big enough, but at the same time, very well directed to the customer. There's another thing that comes into from the audience, which is very interesting. It's talking about the illegality versus legality when a market becomes regulated. He said in Latin, the biggest bettors are in the illegal market. What actions should operators take in order to move those clients to legal platform and increase revenues where they're in the legality? Of course, we are referring to markets where regulation is in place, and therefore there is an offshore offer competing with regulating offer. How can the authorities and how the operators can both together bring the demand into the regulated market so that the regulated market absorbs the majority or the immense majority of the demand? Let's hear Christian just for 1 minute.
Absolutely. I think here we got a very good example to follow, not because I'm Italian, but I have to say that the Italian regulator today, ADM, or AMS, like it was called in the past, is the perfect example of how you can basically bring slowly, but at the end, to bring the players from illegal operators to the regulated ones. First step is to install sort of blacklist. Second step is to enlarge the offer of the regulated operators, because when at the beginning of the blacklist in the Italian market, the players were still playing with illegal operators, the reason was that the offer of those operators, of the illegal or the unregulated operator, was far better than the offer in terms of sports, in terms of events, in terms of products, compared to the Italian. I think that what the Italian regulator did in the last 15 years or 10 years, maybe better, was followed by the Spanish regulator, by the French regulator, the Danish regulator, and so on and so on. So I think those are probably, they tried everything. They tried everything, and probably blacklist and comparison of the offer is the only way or the best way.
Okay, I'd like to hear Alessandro on this, and then I'll hear Robert.
So there is many aspects that Christian just mentioned are obviously important. So the first aspect is that regulators, if they want to remove non-regulated gaming or betting, they need to have in place a regulation that allow an offer similar, at least not the same, but at least similar than the one offered by the non-regulated operators. This is obviously something important, otherwise it's a very tough competition when you are not able to compete with the product. There is a second aspect that is important is the online. Online, it's an area that will grow and is growing continuously. And in case, it's an area very difficult for non-regulated operators. One of the reasons is because, and this it's an help that legal operators has, is that in order to have access to electronic payment, you need, in most of the case, to have a license, but in the country in which you want to operate. So for illegal operators to operate online is and will become more and more difficult because the different government and regulators can enforce this aspect towards the wallet and payment method. From the operator point of view, it's as well, it's a strategy. In the moment you decide to become fully regulated, obviously one of your worst competitor is the non-regulated operators. And on this, you need to put in place as well a strong strategy. And the strategy that need to be, one of the first aspects on this strategy is to be able to build a very good connection with the regulators and to work together with him in order to enforce the regulation in the country, because this as well, it's an important aspect. If the regulator operator don't pressure the regulators, probably the regulator will not be so active in the action that he will put in place to enforce the regulation itself. But it's a process. I saw this in Colombia, for example. In Colombia, it's true that there is still illegal operators, but I have to say that a lot of companies decide to become regulated, and the activity of the illegal operator is becoming more and more complex, including having access to the banking system, to not using the cash, and so on.
Okay, I'm gonna give Robert to answer one question, which is very much in your direction. It's a twofold. One is about the demographic of people of the people that is prioritizing online gaming, which today the studies are considering that is not anymore age from 18 to 35. I think not only the COVID lockdown, but the access that older generations, look at me, have access to technology, are really bringing into the game a lot of other segments in age-wise. So therefore, I think the old topic that only people from 18 to 35 do most of gambling is a little bit past, and it is now a little wider than that. We are talking about anywhere from 18 to 50 and more. But one question is specifically related to virtuals is that what is the age frame that you have in your player base for virtuals? What do you identify? What is the age frame?
So based on the data that we have, and based on all the things that we found out from different markets, I would definitely say that the answer would have been completely different before COVID. Young players definitely are more attracted to virtual sports. Millennials, they grew up with their games, so they have a PlayStation in the house. For them, this is normality. This is what they are used to. So this is why they preferred virtuals, and they played it more than let's say placing a bet on a normal sporting event, a live real event. After COVID, the situation changed dramatically, because also older players who, let's say, had a more classic approach to gambling discovered, because of the lack of these events, that there is also a much wider offering on the operator's website where they place bets, and they turned their heads also towards virtuals. So just to cut it short, after the situation that we're currently experiencing, you cannot really say that only young people play virtuals or only millennials. The demographic situation definitely is much different right now.
Okay, there is one last question, if another one doesn't come in the meantime, which has to do with Latin America. There is a long one. I'm going to make it short. One has to do with technology, whether Latin America is prepared with 5G network, number of smartphones, internet penetration, to take advantage of the technology in order to access online gaming, considering that today we are used to a 70% plus mobile access to online gaming in general, and especially with betting. We know that is the first hand, more or less. This is our land-based terminal for the online, and this is what is really in progress. This is one part of the question. The other question is how they can rush into online for the land-based or the brick and mortar who are damaged by the quarantine and thinking how experience of online gaming is going to evolve with this game changer that the COVID has become, how they can also speed the process to get into the brick and mortar with a success story. So one thing is the availability of the technology, telecom communications, etc., and the other one is how can they make a shortcut or fast track. Alessandro.
So today's everybody, almost a large part of the population has a mobile, and still I can tell you in Africa, where many countries are the average population are quite poor. The coverage, if you look in Nigeria, not only a smartphone, but on 200 million of population, more or less, 60 million use WhatsApp. So we can understand what is the penetration of the smartphone. So the penetration is very large, actually. And the problem of the online many times are not the access of the mobile, but access to the payment methods, or in many countries. You can see this, for example, I take the example of Africa because you have two fantastic examples. In Kenya, where almost everybody use mobile money to make a payment, you have what they call M-Pesa. So you can I can send money to you with one click to my mobile. And obviously, in Kenya, the online betting exploded. It's very important. You compare this to Nigeria, for example, where you don't have access to this mobile payment method. And obviously, the largest part is still retail. So the way you can access the payment change a lot the penetration of online gaming and online sportbook. So in LATAM, as I said, this is a process, and the way toward this process will be surely through regulation. From brick and mortar, we have a lot of experience of companies that move from pure retail to online. We have large casino operators. We can mention the Logran Group in Mexico, or the Princess Group that is present in LATAM and in Africa and other countries, that they own and manage several land-based casinos, and both move to online. It's obviously part of their vision, part of the strategy. It's very important. They understood the importance in going in that direction. But as well, they understood that in order to achieve this, they have to onboard a team that have the knowledge to do this. Both companies started before selecting their partner from the technological point of view, they onboard the proper knowledge. Both of the company have an head of online or a managing director for the online specifically, but it's able to put in place the proper strategy to move the company from a retail on online. And both companies today with the COVID are suffering the retail, but they are understanding very well that online will obviously in a short period of time not compensate the losses, but for sure will contain the damage about a situation like this. So my suggestion for all the retail and mortar company, the decision to go online, it's, I believe that COVID-19 pandemic teach the experience that it's not something that you just can get rid and not think that is and will be more and more important. And second aspect, because we think that it will be more and more important, it as well, we saw by different statistics that the behavior of the consumer is changing. The consumer is becoming, during this pandemic, have been obliged to be more dependent of internet, more dependent on application, on online services, and this process will stay there. So people will be, directly the final consumer will be much more prepared and ready to use online services.
Roberto, let us know your thoughts.
I can only underline what Alessandro said. He touched really the most important points. And especially when it comes to countries that are not so well developed, mobile coverage is a big issue. But now with the current situation that we're experiencing, we notice that everybody turns towards technology, towards internet, and they realize that the internet is really a very important part of our everyday lives that we unfortunately can't live without. And when it comes to betting as well, going towards the online side is definitely crucial. and the only way forward.
Mr. Christian, your turn to close this question.
I have to confirm everything that was already said. Nothing new, of course. I really 100% with Alex and Robert.
Okay, very good. We are practically finished. Maybe I let you a couple of minutes just to say anything that you have not been asked or has not been in the script that you think is substantial to state, but just 2 minutes each. And you can start.
Myself? Okay, I think we covered a lot of topic during this, and it was a very long webinar. So I don't think that there is much more to add. Let's say that if we talk about Latin America, the first thing that I want to say is my wishes for all the countries that in this moment are quite suffering, because it's nothing to do with the topic itself, but I feel comfortable. I'm in a small island, a teeny island in that moment from Malta, where we almost reached the zero COVID-19 cases. We are at 2022, but I have a lot of customers that are running an operation in Latin America, and there the situation it's not at all easy. So I don't have to add content, but my wish is in hoping that the situation will get much better in that area of the world soon.
Robert.
My thoughts also go to Latin America. In Europe, we're slowly getting back to normality, but a lot of Latin American countries are still struggling, and the situation is not getting as good as it should be. So my thoughts really go to these countries. I think we covered a lot of subjects. I would like to thank Alessandro and Christian for being here. I wish I could talk with you guys for hours about different technologies and betting, and we should really have similar webinars more often. And I hope that we also offered our listeners and the people that watch us enough information that they can take home with them. Obviously, after this webinar, I think we will get a lot of requests, and I would just like to point out that myself and probably my colleagues as well are open to any questions if there should be any. So thanks for everyone for being here, and hope to see you again really, really soon.
Well, just to say goodbye, I must say, as Alessandro said, I feel confident that the industry is going to be learning from this situation, and it's going to learn for good. It's going to try to improve. It's going to improve their behavior. It's going to improve their methods. It's going to improve their strategy. And with regard to strategy, I'm talking about those that have been most damaged, which is the land-based retail industry, and their need that they found all of a sudden that what they thought it was an enemy is now an ally, which is the online gaming. They have to go with the flow. As Alessandro said, the society today is changing habits. Buying remote, working remote, not traveling and meeting in remote is going to become substantially important in the habits of the people, because the virus is here to stay for some time. There is no medicine, there is no vaccine. We don't know when and how, and it will be efficient. There is no question that probably the new breakouts are not going to be as stronger as the original one, because all the governments that were so disrupted, not trying to keep it quiet, now they are aware that they cannot do it. They have to approach it and face it, and whatever it takes. Politically, they have to take all the risks. But the operators in the online business that want to go on the retail business, they want to go online. And one of the questions was that if they can afford the costs. I mean, it's like any other businesses. Before you do any analysis of entering into a business, try to analyze strategically where can you get to? Because not everybody is able to establish an online gaming offer unless they do it right, unless they are willing to make an investment, to have the knowledge, to have the product, and to have the technology and the means to do it properly. I don't say we have to copy from the online gaming guys, but those are the ones that know how to do business. And there is many things that the land-based industry has to learn from what the online is bringing them. I've been in this industry in 50 years. 50 years and the last 20 ones, I was involved in the online development. And the many people that was in the land base 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, still does things similar to what they were doing, those back forth. And then only recently they are understanding that there's other ways of doing business, that you have to go for the customers, learn the customers, please the customers, not open the door and wait for them to come in and find whatever. No, you have to offer them what they want, you have to go for them, invite them, make it different to your competition so that you can get those guys in your web instead of the other one, or in your shop instead of the other one. And it's very simple, like any other business. If you do it right, and if you have the opportunity, do experience the online channel. There's companies, and we know which one, that were 100% retail. I'm talking about UK companies, that 100% was coming only for the retail business. They started doing this 10, 15, 20 years ago, some of them. Now, their income is 60%, 40%. 60% for online, 40% for retail. They still make about the same money in retail that they were making 2, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Just losing a little bit, okay? But they gained the market on the online. They were able to bring those customers into an omnichannel environment with one wallet, and each customer values twice, sometimes 3 times the value of a single wallet, of a single channel player. It stays longer with you, is more loyal, the customer life is much longer, practically double, sometimes triple. So there's a lot of advantages, but it has to be done. The retail people has to capitalize their premises, their customers. We have to bear in mind that retail customers are 10 times as many as online customers worldwide. So there is a big fishing pot there. So thank you very much. Thank you to G&M News for offering me the opportunity to share this time with these magnificent panelists. I congratulate you for your answers and for your opinions. And I hope that at least something is being useful for most of our audience. For me, has been a lot of learning, I can promise you. So I am very glad, and I thank everybody for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.